AITA for putting my wife's bags outside after she kept threatening to take my kids from me? Hello, I am 35 years old and I need to tell my story because there are not many places where I can do so. All the names used here are fake. I think it is important to clarify that. For the past few years, I have been living in a very difficult situation, and I have finally found the courage to free myself from a toxic marriage. Right now, I have very few friends because of my own mistakes and the circumstances. Well, I should say my future ex-wife, my dear wife Jessica, who is 35, does not know yet that I am about to end our marriage in a way that will change things dramatically, and I do not feel remorse for the steps I have taken to protect myself and our children. For 3 years, I have lived in constant anxiety and slowly fallen into a deep depression. I lost 68 pounds that I did not need to lose, and I am now practically just skin and bones. Do not worry, I am gradually gaining the weight back since I was clearly underweight. I also signed up for therapy, and in a few weeks, I will open up to a complete stranger. Even though deep down, this is almost the same thing, except it is anonymous. All of this is because of the situation with my wife. Before sharing my experiences with a therapist, I figured I should practice opening up here. I had never used Reddit before, so this is all very new to me. And it is also a good thing that no one knows I have an account. I do not want people talking about me right now. One of the reasons I am also using fake names is that I have 2 little kids, and I do not want them to be recognized through this post. Anyway, I already have enough drama to deal with. All thanks to my wife. Judge me if you want for speaking negatively about her, but I cannot help it. I need to vent. Now, I'm going to tell you everything about her, and you can tell me what you think. My wife and I met in college and started dating a year later. She had already dropped out, but I managed to get my degree. My wife is very beautiful on the outside, but what she is on the inside is a whole different story. I will get to that in a moment. Anyway, I was madly in love with Jessica and thought I was succeeding in life. I wish I could go back in time and give my former self some advice. After finishing my studies and finding a good job as a project manager in a tech company to support a family, I waited another 2 years before proposing to the woman I believed to be the love of my life. My idea from the start was to have a solid financial foundation before taking that step. I was so blinded by love that I ignored all the warning signs. Some of my most clear-headed friends who saw all this from the outside tried to warn me that Jessica was not a good fit, but I was too caught up in my feelings. I was her first real boyfriend, and she had been with me for over 4 years. So, I thought what we had was something very special. Since Jessica had dropped out and did not have a steady job, I thought it was my duty to ensure financial stability before marrying her. I think the only truly mature thing I have ever done in my life was getting a prenuptial agreement, but I will not take credit for it. It was mostly thanks to my parents who had concerns about her intentions. God bless my parents. I owe them so much. I was extremely close to them, and it broke my heart at the time to know what they thought of Jessica. At first, I did not want Jessica to sign a contract, but my parents threatened to boycott the wedding. Once again, thanks Mom and Dad. I did everything to change their minds, but I finally decided it was better to postpone the wedding. That is when Jessica stepped in and said she was willing to sign the prenuptial agreement to reassure my parents. Like an idiot, I was happy, thinking this proved her loyalty and love for me. The prenup was signed, and the wedding took place. Writing these lines, I still cannot believe it. I know exactly how it looks from the outside. 2 months after the wedding, Jessica got pregnant with my daughter Haley, who is now 10 years old. We were being careful because I did not want a child so soon, but Jessica got pregnant anyway. I am almost sure it was not an accident, but I do not care because I will never regret having her. She is the absolute light of my life, just like my son Owen, who is 6. When my daughter was born, I was so happy to be a father. I thought I had succeeded in everything, but things took a turn for the worse. Jessica turned into a very difficult person to live with. She showed little interest in taking care of Haley, and most of the child-related tasks fell on me. She spent her days in bed watching television. It was as if she had no interest in being a mother. I was worried and took her to a doctor to check if she had postpartum depression. Well, no. So why did she refuse to take care of Haley? Because she simply did not want to. It should be noted that this was her only job. We already had a house cleaner coming regularly. Ever since her pregnancy, she constantly complained about nausea and fatigue. Like a fool, I gave in to all her demands to make her happy. Jessica took full advantage of that. I expected her to take charge of the house again, like paying the bills, and to take care of our daughter Haley. I mean, she was a stay-at-home mom, but she refused to take on the slightest responsibility and wanted everything handed to her. Then, little by little, she started increasing her demands. After our daughter was born, it was like a switch flipped in her head. She became extremely unpleasant toward me and no longer showed the slightest affection. Every time I approached her, she would get angry or simply say she was tired and did not want me to touch her. All I asked was for her to hug me sometimes or kiss me when I left for work in the morning. No, she would not do it. We argued constantly every single day. She always found something new to complain about. She hated it when I went out with friends or even with family members. So I ended up pushing them out of my life. She hated my family because she just did not like them. So I was not allowed to see them or even talk to them. It is entirely my fault for not standing up to my wife. Jessica and I had several arguments about this, but I always ended up giving in. She would fly into intense rages, then threaten to harm herself, and I would spend hours talking her down. I knew full well that threats like that were not normal. I begged my wife to get help, but once she calmed down, she acted as if she had never made those threats. She manipulated me so much that I started doubting myself, wondering if I was imagining things. That is how bad the situation had become. Unfortunately, that was not the only way my wife mistreated me. After the birth of our daughter, my wife stopped being affectionate toward me. We were still intimate at times, but she no longer showed me any affection outside of that. I was exhausted from being the only one providing for the family, commuting to my job every day only to come home to a cold and distant wife. I did not like being treated this way, and I felt neglected. Any discussion about this quickly turned into an argument, with my wife accusing me of pressuring her. I tried talking to her several times, then I eventually gave up. I had started considering distancing myself from Jessica. No, I was not a complete pushover. I could clearly see that I was no longer happy in this marriage. I was not getting anything out of this relationship anymore, and it seemed obvious that my wife no longer loved me. When I finally spoke to my wife about a possible separation, or even a divorce, she panicked. Crying, she begged me to forgive her and promised she was going to change. Honestly, I did not really believe her. I even stayed at a hotel for a few days. Then suddenly, Jessica announced that she was pregnant. Yes, I wanted another child, but certainly not under these circumstances. I was happy but also lost, not knowing what to do. I stayed at the hotel for a week, then finally decided to go back home. Jessica was trying to win back my affection, so I wanted to give her a chance. After all, it was the first time she had admitted she was wrong. The second pregnancy went rather smoothly for both of us. Jessica was a completely different woman, and I was very happy to see her correct her mistakes. She showed me affection, told me she loved me, and rarely argued with me. She even started to gradually reconnect with my parents. Everything was fine until Owen was born. As soon as she came back from the hospital, she turned back into the difficult woman she had become before. The cycle repeated itself, but this time I had already been through the experience. I knew Jessica would not change. So, I was determined to get a divorce. My only concern was my children. I stayed for a few more years, just until Owen grew up a little. During that time, I desperately hoped she would change, but she only got worse. She would damage my belongings and throw away my things just to assert her power. My relationship with my parents suffered because she refused to see them and did not want them coming to the house. I told her I was going to leave, but this time Jessica knew how to counter me. She simply threatened to tell everyone that I was abusive toward her and the kids. She reminded me that the court would likely listen to her, that they would take her side. The kids would not be able to do much. Child Protective Services could get involved in a way that would keep them away from me for a long time. Those threats completely destroyed me. That was when I realized I was totally trapped in this marriage. I tried to hold on for my kids. I did not want to lose them. I was so mentally exhausted and emotionally manipulated by Jessica that I ended up believing her words. I was a total wreck, and it showed. My coworkers worried about me, but Jessica absolutely did not care. In fact, I eventually found out she was involved in inappropriate relationships with other men. Yes, I stayed anyway. I only decided to leave for good when she became physically aggressive during an argument about her behavior. That is when I got scared, not for myself, but for my kids. When that happened, it sort of woke me up. I felt a kind of inner drive, and I put it to use. I started planning my moves to get out of the marriage without losing my children. I mapped out a 6-month plan. I gathered evidence of my wife's behavior. I recorded arguments to document the situation. Judge me if you want, but I did what I had to do to protect myself and the children. I was determined to get out of this marriage safely. I bought a second phone and got back in touch with my parents. I regularly sent them the recorded videos so they could keep them safe for me. Jessica did not suspect a thing. She was so confident in her control that she believed I could not leave her. She flaunted her relationships openly and mocked me, knowing I could not do anything. At this point, I could not care less about her actions, because to me, she was no longer my wife. She had become someone I no longer recognized. I recorded everything. Right now, she is away on a short trip with one of the men she had been seeing. I know this because she told me herself, pointing out that there was nothing I could do to stop her. Well, I did not stop her. I let her go so I could prepare the final steps of my plan. I am at home now, but the house has a completely different vibe. I changed the locks on our suburban home outside Denver and put Jessica's belongings in bags. They will be placed on the front porch the day she returns from her trip. The kids will stay with me. I have already contacted Child Protective Services. I went to the police with the recordings and filed for divorce in family court. Everything is ready now. Jessica does not know anything yet, and I hope she is enjoying her trip, so the shock when she returns will be significant. She comes back tomorrow. She will return to find her things on the porch. Her key will not work anymore, and the police will be called if she tries anything disruptive. Everything is ready. All I have left to do is wait. I am not going to lie. I am very nervous and anxious. That is also one of the reasons I decided to come share here. I admit it has been quite a chaotic experience. Now, I feel ready to face whatever awaits me the moment my wife gets back. Edit. Some of you called me a massive pushover for not leaving sooner and giving in to all my wife's demands. Well, I will not argue with you. I was a pushover. People who genuinely love their partners are sometimes blind to their flaws. I might be smart when it comes to intellectual things, but apparently, I am bad at recognizing toxicity. Rest assured, I have learned my lesson well. In reality, I understood it a long time ago. It is as if I went through emotional rehab. I simply could not leave because of my kids. Jessica is a deeply troubled woman, and I knew she would make up stories to take them away from me. Anyway, she never would have let me divorce her because of the prenup. I realized she refused to let me go because no one else would put up with her behavior or fund her lifestyle the way I did. She truly benefited from our marriage. Maybe she would have left if she had found someone richer than me, but I guess she quickly figured out she would not find better. Sometimes, I tell myself I would have preferred her to leave. I would have gotten rid of her sooner, and she probably would not have taken my kids from me either. She never cared about them. They were just a tool to manipulate me. But maybe it is better this way because the slow poison of all these years has already killed all the love I had for her. From now on, I only care about my children. I do not want to teach them that it is normal to stay in a toxic and unsafe relationship. I am not going to try to paint myself in a good light regarding this. I just feel relieved to have finally opened my eyes, even if it took some time. I am not going to wait for the day Jessica loses her mind and creates more harm for my kids. Yes, I was a pushover before, but I will never be one again. I am done with that. I am leaving, and Jessica will face the consequences for what she did to me. I promise you that. Update 1. I came to Reddit just to blow off steam and gather my thoughts before facing the storm brewing in my life. I just needed to get some things off my chest before going to see a therapist. I never imagined my impulsive post would go so viral, nor that people would message me to find out what happens next. It was supposed to be a one-off post, but given the reaction it received, I am willing to continue. I am also glad that many acknowledged that even though I was a pushover, they are happy to see me finally move past this period of my life and change for the better. Since you were all waiting for an update, let me tell you exactly what happened after my last post. I laughed a lot reading some of your comments because you have been very supportive. Your own experiences with difficult spouses, male or female, helped me a lot and gave me hope that I too could be happy someday. I spent 2 days reading your comments, even though I could not reply to everyone. Then the big day arrived, divorce day. Jessica came back from her trip to find she was locked out. She rang the doorbell, expecting me to come running to open it, and give her explanations. I did not even open the door. I simply activated the doorbell camera and told her I had changed the locks and that she was no longer allowed inside the house. I saw Jessica slowly start to get angry. She started screaming for me to open the door and to stop playing games with her. She kept repeating that I could not lock her out of her own house. I reminded her that the house belonged to me according to the prenup and that her belongings were already on the porch. I think she initially thought the bags outside were trash, not her clothes, though frankly, I do not know if there was much of a difference, because the look on her face was unforgettable. Hilarious even. Well, at least to me. I had a hard time holding back a laugh seeing her expression, but then Jessica completely lost it. Oh my God. She screamed and ranted so loudly that the neighbors literally came out of their houses to see what was going on. I should point out that our house is surrounded by a large yard, so the houses are not stuck close together. You can imagine how loudly she was screaming. I saw a few neighbors poke their heads out their doors, but Jessica paid absolutely no attention. She started threatening me openly, saying she was going to call the cops and that they would take the kids away from me. That is when I told her I had already filed for divorce and reported the situation. Oh my God, she went even crazier hearing that. She started acting out of control, pounding and kicking the door. I do not know why she thought that would work because I paid good money for a high-quality security door, and it was really showing its worth then. Jessica injured herself in the process, but she did not stop. Probably because she was completely out of her mind. She then went around the house and tried to damage the windows. I kind of expected that, so I had locked the kids in their room. When I saw her try to throw a flower pot through the window, I grabbed my phone to call the police. But I did not even need to. The neighbors had already called way before, worried about my safety. The cops arrived right as Jessica sent the pot crashing through the living room window. I do not need to tell you what happened next. The police immediately handcuffed her while she struggled to get away. She kept telling them I was the abusive one and that I was holding the kids hostage. The police already had an arrest warrant in her name because of my report. They did not linger and simply told her she was under arrest for domestic violence. This news did not calm her down at all. On the contrary, she kept screaming and thrashing around like someone out of control until the officers put her in the patrol car and drove her away. Later, Jessica called her parents to pay her bail, but they refused. Why? Because I had already spoken to them and showed them the evidence of her behavior. I had done it that very morning because I did not want them tipping Jessica off and ruining my plans. I expected them to defend her, but ultimately that was not necessary because they were furious with her. They assured me they had not raised her to become a woman like that, and I partly believe them. They are simple, decent people. My theory is that her friends were a bad influence on her, but that is just a theory. I know them, and I can say they are not any better than she is. Anyway, Jessica had a hard time getting out on bail because her friends were not there for her. Not when true friends should be. I do not know how she eventually got out, but she did. I do not know where she is now. Probably at one of the places connected to her relationships. Yes, there were several. No, I do not care about her anymore. I stopped caring a long time ago. Right now, my sole focus is making sure she shows up in court. And of course, there are my kids who I need to take care of. Fortunately, my parents have helped me a lot, and my neighbors often come watch the kids to give me a hand. I love this house. It is a very tight-knit community. That is everything that has happened so far. I am not naive enough to believe everything will be easy from here on out. So if you are interested, I will post another update later. Update 2. I have received a ton of private messages, and I am genuinely surprised and touched to see that so many strangers care about what is going on in my life. Maybe some of you are just here for the drama, but if it motivates me to keep going, all the better. And I had a good laugh reading some of your comments. To those who keep telling me I should have left my difficult wife sooner, what is the point of saying that now? I do not have a time machine to fix my stupid mistakes. I never denied making mistakes. I am simply trying to fix them. If anyone reading this is going through a similar situation, all I can say is leave right away. Things will never get better, and you will end up wasting your best years with a man or a woman who does not value you at all. Run away. Find someone who truly loves you. And for those trying to push me into saying horrible things about women, it will not work. I am not crazy enough to believe that all women are like my ex-wife. Things do not work like that. I have a little girl, so I cannot generalize. I have met women who are the complete opposite of my ex-wife, so I have no reason to think that way. Another important point, I had paternity tests done for my 2 kids, and I can share some good news. They are both definitely my biological children. At least I had a little luck in the middle of all this. Right behind the prenup, of course. Yes, thanks again to my parents. To continue talking about the kids, many of you asked me how they are handling the situation. To my great surprise and shame, they are doing fine. It turns out they never really bonded with their mother all these years. On the contrary, they were rather wary of her because they saw how she treated me. One day, my daughter Haley literally burst into tears and begged me not to bring mom home. I felt so ashamed of myself at that moment. I tried to hang in there for my kids, but I had never realized how much Jessica's rages affected them. Since Jessica did not give them much attention, Haley and Owen had no trouble living without her. They still have their regular nanny who takes care of them, cooks for them, and feeds them. Jessica never really did anything for them. Anyway, I was stupid to believe they would be sad without their mother, though honestly, I am convinced I would have lost my kids if Jessica had tried to accuse me of abuse. Many of you advised me to put my kids in therapy to help them get through the divorce and everything that follows. That is exactly what I did. We are working with a therapist, and so far the progress is encouraging. I also informed their school that Jessica was no longer authorized to pick them up. For now, she does not even have visitation rights, and she does not seem to want to see the kids. Regardless, it is very sad that a mother would not want to see her children, but I am not surprised. The latest news is that I got full temporary custody of the kids. My lawyer is confident that I will get permanent custody. Jessica, on her end, hired a lawyer and informed me that she wanted full custody and child support. Yeah, I do not think she is going to get that. There is no way she is going to use my kids to hurt me. The kids are staying with me. I do not want child support or anything of the sort. I am perfectly capable of raising them on my own income. I have a gut feeling that Jessica will spout nonsense in court and try to extort money from me. I am certain the court will teach her a good lesson, but I am staying cautious. Maybe I will be back with an update when the divorce is completely finalized. Update 3. I did it. I got rid of my difficult ex-wife. What a pleasure to finally be able to call Jessica my ex-wife. I am bidding farewell to my marriage with that difficult woman. It has been almost 6 months since my last update. I am sorry for the long silence, but I am sure you understand. A divorce takes time, especially when children are involved. Yes, I had solid grounds for divorce, but Jessica did absolutely nothing to make things easier. I will not go into details because I do not want this update to be too long. Jessica clearly has mental health issues because she started harassing me after she got out of jail. That is why I had to request a restraining order against her. Since she already had a domestic violence charge on her record, the order was granted almost immediately. After that, she did not try anything else. In court, she tried to get money out of the divorce, but the prenup made all of that pointless. It contained a very strict infidelity clause. Thanks again to my parents for that. When Jessica realized she was not going to get much from the divorce, she tried to pivot to the kids. Somehow, she was convinced she would get full custody and child support simply because she was the mother. Well, the judge did not appreciate that attitude at all and called her out, reminding her that she needed to take things seriously. She was completely in denial, thinking Child Protective Services would let her anywhere near the kids after learning about her past behavior. Anyway, I paid for a very good lawyer and got full custody of the children. Then Jessica did something unexpected right before our divorce was finalized. She proposed an out-of-court settlement. She asked me for a sum of money and in exchange agreed to sign away her parental rights. We negotiated a bit, and I ended up giving her a small chunk of my savings. Jessica knew she was in no position to bargain. Some of you might be disappointed that I gave her money, but it settled a lot of things. I understood a long time ago that Jessica did not care about her kids, and my kids did not want her anymore either. So, it was better for her to be out of their lives. Yes, they will grow up without a mother, but I will do everything I can to be enough for them. I see it as a win because I got out of a toxic marriage and kept a harmful person away from my children. Now, I am going to focus on them and make sure they are happy in their new life. Maybe I will start dating again someday, but it is not in my immediate plans. Thank you for being there over these past few months. I hope I will not have to return with another story for a long time. Update 4. So much time has passed that my life has taken a major turn for the better. I am in a relationship with a woman who has absolutely nothing in common with Jessica, And I am not just talking about her personality. She is physically different from her too. Jessica was blonde. My new partner is not. Jessica had blue eyes. My partner has green eyes. I could go on like this all day. It is not that I looked for a different woman on purpose, but it is funny to see how the subconscious works. Anyway, she is also very different from Jessica in her behavior. She met my kids, which is very important to me because if my kids had not approved of her, it would have been hard for me to consider anything serious. Haley is already 14, so she is not really a little girl anymore. But neither of them opposed my relationship. I would even say it is quite the opposite. And on the side of my partner, who I will call Megan, the feeling is mutual. In fact, I would say Megan has been more of a mother to them than Jessica ever was, even though she has not spent that much time with them yet. But when she is with them, she shows a clear maternal instinct, as if she naturally knows how to bond with them. Something I never saw in Jessica. Another major test was meeting my parents, in whom I have absolute trust today. When they met her, I watched them closely to read their expressions. But that day ended with big smiles, and they called me afterward to tell me that Megan had their full approval. Speaking of which, my parents won a cruise to the Bahamas, gifted by their eternally grateful son. It is the least I could do for them, not just for the money they saved me during the divorce, but also for everything they did for my children. But it is time to tackle a more sensitive topic. Well, I do not know if that is the right word. I want to talk about Jessica. If you are wondering what I know about her after all these years, well, not much, but I am not going to leave you hanging. After the divorce, I know she lived with several men, not all at the same time, of course. I guess they were part of her relationships, and I am quite glad I do not know them. The last thing I know about her, thanks to a chance encounter with her parents at the supermarket, is that they had to have her hospitalized after a serious mental health episode triggered by an argument with one of those men. Then, she moved out of the city and the state, and she now lives somewhere else. From what her parents know about it, which is not much, she is reportedly doing better. I cannot judge this supposed improvement because I have not seen her, but apparently it is a conditional improvement. My ex-in-laws also took the opportunity to talk to me about my kids and even asked if they could see them from time to time. They had never done that before, thinking I would not want them in my children's lives after what their daughter did. But since then, they occasionally come over for barbecues at my parents' house, and surprisingly enough, everyone gets along well. That is all for the news on my end. I hope that on your end too, you have some wonderful things to share after all these years. Comment. This story really stayed with me. I keep thinking about how important self-respect is in every relationship we have. Setting healthy boundaries is one of the most loving things we can do for ourselves and our loved ones. Healing is not easy, but it is worth every effort we put into it. Taking responsibility for our own peace and our children's safety can change everything. If you are going through something difficult right now, please remember that you deserve better. Choosing to protect your well-being is not selfish. It is necessary. I truly believe that real kindness starts with how we treat ourselves. Finding the courage to seek help and create a calmer life is something we can all do. I hope this makes you pause and reflect on what truly matters in your own journey. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.